The morning light coming through the kitchen window used to be my favorite part of the day. I'd stand there with my coffee, watching the backyard, listening to the birds. Simple. Quiet. Mine. That morning, my phone buzzed on the counter. A text from my son, Marcus. "Dad, we need to talk about Thanksgiving. Diane thinks it would be better if you didn't come this year. It's nothing personal. She just wants the holiday to feel a certain way." I read it 3 times. Then I set my coffee down, very carefully, and sat at the kitchen table where Marcus had eaten breakfast every morning for 18 years. The same table where I'd helped him with algebra homework, where we'd sat together the night his mother passed, neither of us saying much, just being there. It's nothing personal. I was 64 years old. I had worked for 31 years as a civil engineer. I had buried my wife. I had raised my son alone for the last decade of his childhood. And now I was being told, via text message, that I would make Thanksgiving feel the wrong way. I didn't respond right away. I put the phone in my pocket and went outside to the backyard and stood in the cold for a long time. Let me tell you how we got here, because it didn't start with that text message. It never starts with the thing that breaks you. It starts much earlier, in moments so small you almost miss them. Marcus met Diane about 4 years ago at a work conference in Chicago. He called me that same weekend, more excited than I'd heard him in years. She was smart, he said. Driven. Beautiful. Her family was from Connecticut, old money, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Her father had been a corporate attorney. Her mother sat on the boards of 2 nonprofits. They had a summer house on Cape Cod. I was happy for him. I genuinely was. The first time I met Diane, Marcus brought her to my house in Columbus for a Sunday dinner. I made pot roast, the same recipe his mother always made. Diane ate about 4 bites and then mentioned, lightly, that she'd been trying to eat mostly plant-based lately. She said it without looking at me. Marcus immediately apologized to her, as if I had done something wrong by cooking. I noted that. Filed it away. They got engaged after 8 months. Quick. But Marcus had always known his own mind, or at least, I thought he had. The engagement party was at Diane's parents' home in Connecticut. A beautiful house, I'll give them that. Exposed beams. A wine cellar. A garden that looked like it required a full-time staff. Her father, Richard, shook my hand with the particular firmness of a man who has already decided you are beneath him. Her mother, Patricia, asked me twice what I did for work, as though she hadn't heard me the first time or simply hadn't found it worth remembering. I drove back to Columbus that Sunday evening and told myself I was being too sensitive. These were just different people, different world. Marcus was happy. That was what mattered. The wedding was the following spring. I paid for the rehearsal dinner Marcus had asked me, and I was glad to do it. 34 people. A private room at a restaurant downtown Columbus. It cost me just over $6,000. I didn't mention that to anyone. It was for my son. What I didn't know until 2 weeks before the wedding was that Diane's parents had told their side of the family that the rehearsal dinner venue was charming, a word they use the way some people use the word quaint. Marcus mentioned it offhandedly, laughing it off. I laughed too. But I heard it. After the wedding, Marcus and Diane moved into a condo in a suburb north of Chicago. A very nice condo. 3,200 square feet. High ceilings. A rooftop terrace. The kind of place that looks like a magazine spread. Marcus called me about 6 weeks after the wedding. The mortgage was more than they'd planned for, he said. Between student loans, Diane's car payment, and the HOA fees, things were tight. Just temporarily. He'd gotten a good bonus coming at the end of the quarter. He just needed a bridge. How much? I asked. $3,000 a month. Just for 6 months, Dad. Maybe 8. That was 2 years and 3 months ago. I had been sending $3,000 every month since then. I never missed a payment. That's $81,000 in case you're doing the math. I know because I was doing the math, quietly, the whole time. I wasn't struggling. Not exactly. I had a pension, Social Security, and some savings I'd built carefully over 30 years. But 3,000 a month was not nothing. I had stopped taking the fishing trip I used to take every September up in Michigan. I'd put off replacing my truck, which had 200,000 miles on it, and a heating system that worked only when it felt like it. Small things. I didn't complain about them. Marcus was my son. What I noticed, though, was that as the months went on, the calls got shorter. The visits got fewer. Last Christmas, they didn't come to Columbus. Diane's family does a big thing in Connecticut, Marcus explained. Maybe next year. This past summer, I drove up to Chicago to see them. I gave 2 weeks' notice. The way you do when you're visiting an adult child and you want to be respectful. When I arrived, Diane met me at the door in a way that reminded me of someone greeting a delivery person. Not rude exactly, just efficient. Marcus hugged me and seemed genuinely glad to see me. But then Diane mentioned they had dinner plans that evening with some friends she'd forgotten I was coming that weekend, she said. She smiled when she said it. Marcus looked at the floor. I slept in the guest room, which was beautiful, by the way. 600 thread-count sheets. A small vase of flowers on the nightstand. A room designed to impress visitors you didn't particularly want to spend time with. We had breakfast together the next morning. The three of us. And Diane's phone was on the table the entire time. Marcus was warm, asking about my neighbors back home. Asking about my old colleague Frank, who'd had a health scare. Diane asked me once if I followed any podcasts, and when I said not really, she nodded and looked back at her phone. I drove home on Sunday afternoon. Marcus walked me to my truck and hugged me at the end of the driveway. I noticed he didn't look back when he walked back inside. So when that text came on a Tuesday morning in early November, I wasn't shocked. Not really. I was something else. The feeling you get when you've been watching something die slowly, and then one morning you wake up, and it's finally gone. Grief, maybe. Or the strange, hollow quiet that comes after grief. She just wants the holiday to feel a certain way. I thought about the pot roast, about the rehearsal dinner, about $81,000 in a truck with a broken heater and a fishing trip I hadn't taken in 3 years. I thought about Marcus at the kitchen table, 14 years old, the year after his mother's diagnosis, when he was scared and trying not to show it, and how I'd made him hot chocolate and sat with him until he fell asleep. I thought, does Diane know about the hot chocolate? Does she know about any of it? And then I thought something that surprised me with its clarity. I am done subsidizing my own exclusion. I didn't text Marcus back that day, or the next. I spent 3 days thinking, very carefully, about what I actually wanted to do. Not what would hurt them. Not what would feel satisfying in the moment, but what was right, and what I could live with. On the 4th day, I called my bank. I had the payment scheduled to go out on the 15th of every month. Automatic, the way you set up a utility bill. I canceled it. Then I called my financial advisor, a woman named Ruth who had been helping me manage things since my wife passed. I told her what I was doing and why. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "It's your money, Robert. You never had to send it in the first place." Robert, that's my name. I should have told you that earlier. I also called my attorney that week. Not because I wanted to punish Marcus. I want to be clear about that. I called because I realized I had never updated certain documents after my wife passed. The will, the beneficiary designations, the power of attorney, things you put off because facing them means facing other things. I sat down with my attorney, and we went through everything. I made changes that reflected my current life and my current understanding of things. I still hadn't responded to Marcus's text. On November 14th, the day before the payment would normally have gone out, Marcus called me. We had a short conversation. He asked if I was doing okay, said he hadn't heard from me. I told him I was fine. He mentioned Thanksgiving, said he hoped I understood about Diane's feelings regarding the holiday. I told him I did understand. I didn't tell him about the bank. On November 16th, my phone rang at 7:43 inches the morning. Marcus, Dad, the mortgage payment didn't go through. I know, I said. Silence. What do you mean you know? I canceled the automatic transfer. It won't be going out this month, or going forward. More silence. Then, Dad, we budgeted around that. We need that money. I sat down in the kitchen chair. The winter light was coming through the window again. A cardinal was on the fence post outside, the red of it so bright it looked painted. Marcus, I said, I've been sending $3,000 every month for over 2 years. That's more than $80,000. And last month, your wife sent me a text telling me I wasn't welcome at Thanksgiving because I'd make the holiday feel the wrong way. I need you to understand that I can't do both of those things at the same time. I can't be the person who funds your home and also the person who's too embarrassing to have at the table. He was quiet for a long moment. She didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it? He didn't answer. I love you, I said. That hasn't changed. But I need to be treated like a person who matters, not just a payment that arrives on the 15th. I heard him exhale slowly. I don't know what to say, Dad. You don't have to say anything right now. Take some time. Talk to Diane. Or don't. Figure out your finances. You have good jobs. You can carry this mortgage on your own. You just chose not to when you didn't have to. I believe in you. We hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after. The next few days were uncomfortable. Marcus called twice more. The second call, I could hear Diane in the background, her voice tight and controlled, clearly coaching him on what to say. He told me I was being vindictive, that this was a manipulation tactic, that I was trying to punish them for a private family decision. I let him finish. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm stopping a financial arrangement that I entered voluntarily and that I can exit voluntarily. If the arrangement had been working for both of us, I might have continued it. But it wasn't working for me. What does that mean? He asked. It means that for $81,000 over 2 years, I'd expect to be welcome at Thanksgiving. He hung up. Richard called me the following week. Diane's father. I'll admit that surprised me. I hadn't expected him to get involved directly. His voice had the same texture it always did, smooth and deliberate. The voice of someone accustomed to being the most important person in a room. Robert, he said, I think there's been a misunderstanding between you and the kids. Diane was trying to establish some boundaries around the holidays. I'm sure you can appreciate that. I can, I said. And I've established some of my own. Now, I understand you've pulled some financial support. And I think perhaps we can talk through, Richard. I kept my voice pleasant. Do you know how much I've been contributing to your daughter's household? A pause. I don't think that's $3,000 a month for over 2 years. $81,000. I'm telling you that number because I want you to understand what I was giving, and I want to ask you something genuinely, man to man. I let a beat pass. Why didn't Diane ever ask you? The silence that followed was very different from the earlier ones. It was the silence of a man who had asked himself the same question and had no answer he was willing to say out loud. I'll let you think about that, I said. Thank you for calling. I hung up and looked out at the backyard. The cardinal was gone. The fence post was empty and ordinary and just fine. Thanksgiving came and went. I drove up to Michigan, to the lake house my friend Tom has owned for 30 years. Tom's wife, Carol, made a turkey that was better than anything I'd had in years. We sat by the fire after dinner. 4 of us, Tom and Carol, their daughter who lives nearby, and me. We talked about small things and laughed about old things, and I slept better that night than I had in months. I want to tell you that Marcus called to apologize. I want to give you that ending because you deserve it. And because I want it too. Here's what actually happened. He called the week after Thanksgiving. He didn't apologize. Not in the way I'd have recognized, but his voice was different. Quieter. And tired in a way that wasn't about sleep. He said he'd been thinking a lot. He said he didn't know things had gotten as far as they had. He said he was sorry that I'd felt excluded. It wasn't enough. But it wasn't nothing. I'm not going away, I told him. I'm your father. That's the one thing in this situation that doesn't change. But I can't keep arranging my life around people who don't make room for me. That includes financially. I know, he said. And I believed that he did. At least a little. We're in a fragile place now, Marcus and I. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. He and Diane are managing the mortgage on their own, and from what I understand, they've had some hard conversations about their spending. Good. Those are conversations they should have had 2 years ago. Conversations that might have happened sooner if I hadn't made it so easy to avoid them. I feel grief about that. Not anger, I've had enough of anger. Just the particular sadness of loving someone and watching them make the choices that cost both of you something. Some people have asked me if I was too hard on them. Maybe. I ask myself that some nights when I'm sitting in the kitchen and the house is quiet in the way it gets when you're 64 and you've outlived your marriage and your child has moved 1,000 miles away, maybe I should have talked to Marcus before pulling the payment. Maybe I should have had the conversation first. But here's what I know. I spent $1,000 in 3 years of Septembers trying to be close to my son. I sat in a guest room with 600 thread count sheets and felt further from him than when I was home alone. I was funding a life I was not welcome in. And no amount of soft approaches and careful conversations had changed that, because I'd been having soft and careful conversations with myself about it for years. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop pretending that something is fine when it isn't. My truck finally gave out in December. I took my time and bought the one I actually wanted. A dark green F-150 with a heated cab and a tow package. For when I take the boat out in the spring, I've already booked the lake house in Michigan for next September. Tom and I have been talking about doing a full week this year, maybe getting a few of the old crew together. It's not the life I imagined at 64. But it's mine, all the way through. And I think that counts for something. I think it counts for quite a lot.